Hello everyone, welcome to the show. My name is Jason Sutton. I am your host, and I'm also the guru, where it's my job to dissect, analyze, break down, and ultimately share with all of you good people out there the habits, routines, and life lessons of high performers in the teaching business, and also other fields and in between. On today's episode, I've got my good friend Nancy Harvey. You can reach out to her on the Twitter at TheGolfNancy and Instagram at TheGolfNancy. Nancy is a senior instructor at the Golf Academy at Ballantyne, formerly the Dana Rader Golf School, and someone that I know very, very fondly because we taught together for quite a few years. Nancy has a great resume, which includes being the 2016 LPGA T&CP Southeast Section Teacher of the Year. Nancy also has a very strong service record with the LPGA, where she is a national educator and global education team evaluator for the LPGA Teacher Education Program. So she does a lot for golf, does a lot for the teaching game, and is just a fantastic instructor. So I know you're going to enjoy hearing her story. So without further ado, let's get to my conversation with Nancy Harvey. Enjoy. All right, Nancy Harvey, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me, Jason.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's great to see you and catch up. I know we see each other quite often, but not enough.
Yeah.
Now that we're super busy. But thanks for coming through.
No, it was great to catch up with Tiff and Nick and everything. Had a great dinner, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, we got a little wine going, right? So
yeah.
As I always say, that drinking is not optional in this podcast. We always have to have a little bit of vino. So we're all set. We're gonna have a fun conversation. For those, couple of people out there listening to the show, let's give them a little bit of background. I know right now, like currently, tell them where you're at, and then we'll take the listeners back.
Currently, I'm right here in Charlotte at Ballantyne Golf Academy, a former home of Dana Rader Golf. I've been here in Charlotte. This is my 13th year teaching here in Charlotte with Dana, and I taught a long time with you.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be kind of interesting to go through your career first off, but then when we get to the golf school stuff, I probably remember a few things that should be interesting that maybe we can talk about when you came through and interviewed. So what I think is really fascinating about your career is this is your second career, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So let's talk about, you can take us as far back as you want, like your childhood, maybe some sporting background and what you did prior to getting into teaching golf.
So when I was 3 years old, no, I'm just kidding. I'm not going back that
That's
far.
That's all right.
I played real short as a kid. I played a lot of soccer. I played basketball. I grew up with two older brothers, and back then, you just played with the neighborhood kids. I say I was a above average high school athlete, nothing special or anything like that. Fast forward, I went, normal college. I have a
Syracuse, right?
Yes.
Yeah, give Cuse a shout out.
Yeah, went to Syracuse. I have a BS in engineering. Started with a company, Fortune 500 company. I got into their management program pretty early in my career, so I mostly was a manager in the metropolitan area. I worked a lot in Manhattan. It was an industrial distribution company. Worked there for 12 years. Long story short, people would be going out to play golf on Friday or leaving the office early on Friday. I'd be like, where do you guys go? And they were like, we go out to golf, and then we go out to dinner. I've never really played golf before, and I was like, well, I play golf. I just wanted to get out of the office early on Friday.
So did you start playing a little bit like before you decided about the career change?
I did. I started playing a little bit in the summers and stuff. Nothing serious. But I wanted to go on a golf school vacation, kind of like what people do now when I teach them.
Right.
Where maybe a 3-day school or a week-long school, kind of a vacation golf school. Still nothing really super serious. I just wanted to get a little bit better. I wasn't thinking anything at the time, and so I Googled golf schools, and this at the time it was called the Golf Academy of the South popped up, which is a 2-year, you get an associate's college degree.
Right.
I didn't think anything of it, but for some reason, and people ask me all the time, what was it? I have no idea. It just stuck in my head.
Just that choice to go to that golf school, or you?
Well, no, just that, and I was looking at regular, like the 3-day golf schools and
Right.
the 5-day golf schools, but for some reason, 6-7 months down, you take you back a little bit. I'm in my early 30s, so you think, when you're back in your early 30s, you're like, oh, it's over. I can't, you think like that. Like once you hit 30,
you feel really
over.
old, right?
Yeah. So I was like, I'm gonna apply to that golf school, thinking I'm never gonna get into it, because then when I'm 40, I'll have no regrets.
Because you're shooting about what, a buck 15 at this point, right?
Yeah, my index, my first established index when I got in, before I went to that school, was 38.
Yeah, it's like max.
Yeah, I did 40s max for women. So.
Right. Yeah, you were close.
but yeah, I was maxing it out and everything, and so I apply. My mom lived down in Florida at the time, and I went and I talked to the guy Brad Turner, who's still there and everything.
Right.
And we just talked and everything. I saw the campus, and for some reason I decided to apply, and I got accepted, and I was on golf probation.
Right.
And
so you had to get good quick.
Yeah. Well, and I had a conversation with Brad after the acceptance, and this is how naive I was about the game and everything. We were having this conversation, and he's like, hey, you're going to have to show signs of improvement, and really wanted to work at it and stuff. And I looked right at him. We laugh about it now. I looked right at him. I go, I'm going to quit my job, sell my condo, move down here. I'm going to be shooting in the 70s by the end of the first semester. I was like, what are you talking about?
Just like the people we teach now, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, there you go.
Absolutely. And I tell people, if I was so naive getting into it, if I actually would have realized how hard it would have been, I probably would have been too scared to do it.
Right. Yeah. So almost not knowing what was in front of you was sort of a blessing for you.
Yeah, because I probably wouldn't have done it if I realized how hard golf was and stuff.
So tell us the journey. I think that's so fascinating, because like that takes a lot of guts for one to do that, and to say, okay, I'm going to do something completely different that I'm a beginner at, and you need to almost be like, PGA pro level.
Yeah, but again, take back that I had no idea how hard it was going to be. I worked for a Fortune 500 company, and when I told my boss, at the time when I left, I was managing one of the largest facilities in the country for him, and he was like, hey, if it doesn't work out, just give me a call, and you'll always have a job.
So you had a little bit of a safety net.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah. So I thought, well, worst case scenario, I work on my game for 2 years, and I go back to kind of a real job.
Yeah, and it would definitely have been helpful probably in that space.
Yeah.
To have those skills, right?
Yeah. So, lo and behold, I do that, and first semester I tell Brad, hey, I'm going to be shooting in the 70s. Well, I quickly realized by then, because I was maybe playing once or twice a month. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like I caught this bug that I wanted to go crazy. And I never thought that I was going to teach, ever. I thought I'd, like manage a facility or something like that. So I had to kind of reevaluate my goals. So the first semester goal, after I realized we had tournaments every Monday in the golf school. So my goal was to break 100 in a tournament.
Right.
So by the end of the first semester, getting close to the end of the first semester, I was breaking 100 on casual rounds. And
What
stuff.
was your first posted score? I know you told me this.
128.
There you go, 128. That's awesome.
Can I jump ahead of the story a
Yeah.
little bit to preference that?
Yeah.
One of my low tournament score at that golf school was my fourth semester, and so that's 16 months later. Shot a 74.
That's
Posted a
amazing.
74
How
in a
good is
tournament.
that?
And people, I don't know if I came in, I don't know, 8th place or something.
Doesn't
10th
matter.
Place, and people coming up to me like I had won the tournament. Because it's kind of been with me for the 4 semesters and everything.
Wow.
Yeah, so my goal that first semester was to break 100 in a tournament. It came down to the semester ending tournament, the very last tournament of the semester. I ended up, I don't know what I shot, like 96 or 98. It wasn't like
You're sweating it down the stretch.
Yeah.
You're like, I just got to make like bogey in the last 2 holes.
Yeah, it wasn't like I went low or anything, but I ended up breaking it, and then my goal second semester was to break 90, third, 85, fourth semester.
So you just kept getting better and better?
Yeah, but I mean, it was a full-time job for me.
Right.
At school, you went to class in the morning. You were done probably around 12, 1 o'clock, and I literally took at least one lesson a week for that 16 months.
Do you remember your coach? Was it?
It's Charlie King.
I was going to say that he'll come up again, I think, in the mentor question, but
yeah,
one of our mutual friends now, Mr. King.
Yeah, he was one of my first coaches, a guy named Tom Gardner, who worked at the school part-time, and he also worked down at Bay Hill. He was another big influence in my development as a player. Those 2 guys were probably my 2 biggest influences then.
That's so cool. So you get through the program.
I get through the program.
And then the next step is what? When
gotta
do you make
find
the
a job.
decision? Yeah, now you got to get employed, right?
Yeah, and I'm still not thinking teaching or coaching or anything. I'm thinking more along the lines, eventually working my way up to like a director of golf or something. I was interested in tournament operations through the golf school. I had some interesting tournament classes and stuff. So my first job was assistant pro at a private club in Philadelphia. It didn't take me long to realize that was not the route I wanted to go, assistant pro or head pro.
Right.
So
you just didn't enjoy that part of the business.
Correct.
Right away.
And I just, at that point now I'm 2 years into it. I'm probably 34, 35. And I think that's a great career for people. Don't get me wrong, but I just knew right away it wasn't for me. And funny, it was the end of that. I was going to leave at the end of that season anyways because it wasn't for me. And I get a call from Brad Turner from the golf school. And he knows the head pro at a club in Toledo, Ohio, the Inverness Club.
Yeah, very nice.
And they're looking for a female assistant. And this was 2000 with a 3-year commitment because they're having the U.S. Senior Open in 2003. I'm like, that sounds perfect. They were doing a lot of tournaments and they would do some the Chuck Evans tournament, the Pro, where they invite top 100 teachers and the top 100 head pros to tournaments and stuff. And I'm like, that sounds great. So I sign up for that. And even though I was still an assistant, it was a totally different kind of vibe.
You met our friend Mr. Carbone at that time, right?
So at the time, Jason Carbone was the director of instruction, and still at that first year, I probably still wasn't that interested in teaching. I didn't know anything about it, but I would help him with some juniors and some ladies clinics, and I started getting interested in it. And he was great. He would let me observe whenever I wanted. He would do a lot, like when he had some downtime, we'd watch video, and his famous words were, okay, what do you see? Okay, why are they doing that? And I'd explain, okay, why are they doing that? And that's kind of got the bug for me. And I mean, I was observing them whenever I could, helping out with the clinics and all that. And David Graff was the head pro, and his college roommate was the director of instruction down at Faldo Golf Institute in Orlando. And so he got me a job down there for the winter. And
so that's your first sort of full-time-ish
well, I was
teaching.
going to be a full-time teaching. And you got to think 9/11 happened.
Right.
So a lot of travel and stuff. And they were like, hey, we can't really bring on another instructor. You can work in the shop. And I negotiated with them, hey, I'll come down and work in the winter in the shop, but I want to go through their training program.
Nice. Yeah.
So they had a structured training program and everything that they let me go through. And you know, when I wasn't working, I was observing teachers. By then, I kind of got the bug, and
yeah, it sounds like it.
Fascinated by it, and I would just watch whoever I could. I would go and visit other teachers. At the time, Nick Faldo was still playing a little bit and practicing. I got friendly with Fanny, and she would be setting up practice stuff for Nick, and I would be just like asking her questions.
What a learning experience. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, so my journey, I got a little bit lucky on people that I got hooked up with, and they knew somebody else.
Right.
And so,
but you did the work. I mean, that's such a common theme when I talk to these top coaches on the podcast, is they're seeking out other teachers to learn from. And do you feel like that had to be such a huge ignition piece to your career, right?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times, I'm sure you were the same way. I spent almost all of my free time, asking people if I can observe them, taking a lesson from somebody.
Right, it's another good way to learn.
Yeah, so yeah, and I was lucky enough to be kind of, especially down at Faldo, even though I was working in the shop, so you do your 8 hours in the shop. I spent another 4 or 5 hours a day just kind of watching Dolangowski give lessons, Chip give lessons, stuff like that. Funny story, that range is a 360 range.
Right.
And I was in the back working on some fairway bunker shots. I was not very good in fairway bunkers, so I'm there working, and the tee is right next to it, and who drives up is Nick Faldo and Fanny, and he starts hitting shots, and I'm right next to him in the fairway bunker, and I kind of got up enough nerve. I'm like, what the heck, I might never have this opportunity again. And I go, oh, Mr. Faldo, if you have a minute, could you maybe help me in the fairway bunker? And he looks at me and he goes, I was waiting for you to ask me.
Oh, wow. What a guy.
So he gets, wait for the rest of the story.
Yeah, okay.
No, he was good. But don't get me wrong. So he's like, come out of the bunker. And I'm coming out of the bunker, and we're kind of standing there looking at the bunker. And he goes, imagine the bunker, in his little English accent, imagine the bunker is filled with eggs. And I'm like, is this going to be like that pink elephant thing? I go, okay. And he goes, don't break any eggs. And he turns around, walks away, and he starts hitting balls again. And I'm just standing there.
That's your lesson?
That was my lesson.
Oh,
don't break any eggs.
Oh, so would you just tiptoe into the bunker and
I'm
just try to figure out what you're trying to learn?
Yeah, so I'm just standing there trying to imagine eggs. And Fanny comes up to me, and she goes, your ball position's too far forward, and you have to lean on your left a little bit more.
So she backed it.
So she was like, so I go in there, and she goes, nope, play the ball a little more forward. All right, tilt a little more to the left, and I started hitting a lot cleaner shots and everything.
Oh my gosh.
But that was my fairway bunker lesson with Nick Faldo.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So is that after or before you came to Dana Rader? I'm trying to think. Or was there another trying to, didn't you go back to New York?
I did go back to New York for a summer
Right.
For personal reasons. I have family in New York and
Right.
everything,
Yeah.
and I went back for a summer, and by that time I knew I had already been teaching full time, and I wanted to work for top 25 golf school, top 100 teacher, and I wanted to be able to teach year round. And I was lucky enough that an opportunity in Charlotte came, and that's where I've been ever since.
Yeah, I remember when you came to interview, and I was like, we got to hire now.
Well, I
'Cause it was-
appreciate that.
Yeah. No, it was. I mean, I could just tell, because you're so passionate, and I can just tell the curiosity, and that's like my next question is like, what do you think? I mean, your engineering background has to play a huge role, I think, in your success, and then being a coach and being sort of a curious learner and continuous learner. Is there any like lessons that you think you draw upon your previous career that's helped you in your teaching?
That's a good question. Well, I always say an engineering background or engineering degree teaches you a way to think. So it's definitely helped me in figuring out cause and effect. I've had to become a learned extrovert, and my previous
You stole
job,
that from me.
You stole it from somebody else.
Yeah, I think
then.
you're right. Yeah, exactly.
But my previous job was more into management, and the company was a good company, and they did a lot of training with Myers-Briggs and personality, and changing your personality to match your employees' personality and stuff. So I think that's really helped me to connect with my students, get inside. It's the LPGA uses a student-centered model
Right.
to get inside the students' world, talk and do the learning as they do. So I think that was one of the biggest things from my previous career on how much of that human resource or that development of people that I had to do helped me get inside the students' world.
That's perfect. And we're going to come back to that. And I got a great question about IQ versus EQ that we're going to talk about. But I want to get to, and we're going to go all over the place. I don't have a set blueprint here, as you can tell. But I'm always curious of mentors and influences in your career and in what you've learned from them. So give us 2 or 3 mentors that you feel, and it could be in your business life, it could be in your golf, but talk a little bit about some of the people that have affected your career in a positive way, and then what you've learned from them.
Boy, there's actually a lot of them that I couldn't mention everybody. A couple of the biggies, obviously Charlie King is one of the biggies. He's one of my first mentors in the golf industry. He was a teacher at that golf school at the time, and he just really believed in me, and he just kind of didn't push me, but he just gave me a lot of confidence to do a lot of different stuff that I didn't really think I would be able to do and everything. Jason Carbone, in a way, kind of gave, he probably doesn't even realize this, but gave me that insight or that ability to develop that passion for teaching, just letting me observe whatever I wanted, those hours of looking at videotape and just asking those basic questions to me. Obviously, Dana has been a big influence on my career with the LPGA and my involvement with the LPGA now and stuff. Right. And obviously you're rounding out some of the mentors.
Oh, you're too kind.
The hours that we spent in the training room that you didn't have to spend there, but you did more for me than anything. So
I learned just as much. Trust me, it's a two-way street. But I appreciate that.
But those are probably my the biggest influencers or mentors in my golf career.
Can you think of any stories that come to mind, like back in the day, of like maybe that Jason was a part of, or Charlie, or just anything that would bring some relevance to all that? Anything come to mind? We can come back to it. I won't put pressure on you there.
Charlie used to always say, you can just teach what you know, and you're going to be fine. You're going to know more than the student, but just stick to teaching what you know. I mean, no big earth-shattering like that I remember, like aha moments or anything. It was it was they were subtle. They were long-term kind of relationships and commitments.
Yeah. And they're still there now. You know, that's the thing, is I know I can pick up the phone right now and call Charlie and or call Jason. Both of those guys are good friends of mine now because of you.
Yeah.
I think we all sort of met each other through those connections.
Yeah.
That's what the great thing about the golf business is now.
Yeah, I just talked to Charlie actually 3 or 4 days ago.
There you go. Yeah, such a great guy.
Yeah.
Had a huge influence on my career. Big shout out to Charlie King. All right, so let's switch gears just a little bit, but kind of stay on that topic. This is a new one I've been trying out. If you were writing a book or teaching a class to young coaches, what subjects would you include? Like thinking about the blueprint that a young coach needs to have, what do you think we would include?
Be open to other ideas, philosophies. There's more than one way to teach golf.
So there'd be a reading class.
It could be a reading class.
Yeah.
And go into observations. I would do a chapter on observing other teachers. I think so many younger teachers or teachers in general will go into watching another instructor give a lesson, not by observing or absorbing how that lesson is being done, but critiquing how they would do it differently.
Mm-hmm. That's great advice. I was going to say that. How would you? There's almost an art to actually observing, right? So contacting the coach. I mean, what advice would you give to the young coaches? How to sort of make it happen? And then, do you take notes? Do you not take notes? I mean, I've got my thoughts, obviously, but how did you do it?
Yeah, I did it. Like somebody like a Jason. Where we work together and stuff.
Let's just say it's somebody you don't know. Like you're trying to reach out.
Yeah. I would reach out to the person, tell them who I was, tell them why I want to observe them or observe her, and kind of give them background on me. And I really didn't get a lot of resistance. And if there was, I'm a little busy, blah, 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 I would call and book a lesson. And
there you go. Yeah,
and
that's persistence.
Yeah, and then now, I mean, and I would pay for the lesson and everything. And sometimes I told the instructor that I reached out, a month ago or 2 weeks ago, and sometimes I wouldn't, because I didn't want to put that person on the spot or anything. I just wanted to know what kind of information that they had.
Sure.
So sometimes the conversation came up, and sometimes I just took the lesson and they never knew it was me from a month ago.
Right.
So stuff like that. But most everybody that I did, they welcomed it.
Yeah. I don't know why you wouldn't. I mean, I think times have changed a lot. I know the last guy, my friend Tom Stickney, talked about him when he was younger, going and reaching out to a coach, and the guy wanted to charge him $1,000 because, I mean, it's like they wanted to protect their information so much. Now I think we've at least turned the corner where we're more forthgiving with info.
Sure.
Would you agree? I mean, I think we should be. I mean,
yeah, it's not, and we joke around that you steal from everybody.
Yeah, 100%.
There's as far as that stuff goes, it's just reinventing myself to teach golf and everything. I know with technology, obviously things are changing, but that basic lesson, I don't think nobody has something that somebody else doesn't have. It's how you present it. It's your personality. It's how you can get the player or the student to absorb it.
Yeah, 100%. So that kind of gets me back to that original question is, when developing as a top teacher as you are, do you consider IQ or EQ more important, and how do you develop both?
That's a good question, too. So the IQ part, I mean, and with the age of the internet and everything, I do read less of a full book now.
Right. More stuff online, right?
More stuff
still
online.
Reading though.
Yeah, still reading.
I agree.
Still looking at stuff like that, but less of buying a book.
Right.
But to say that, I mean, Every Shot Count by Dr. Mark Brody. I had read it when it first came out, and I was looking up some stats from that book the other day, and I'm like, next thing I know, I've kind of jumped around from chapter to chapter, but I probably reread that book again. So I kind of contradicted myself about the book thing and everything, and then just I think that just getting into the students' world is a big part of doing a lesson, and I want to the LPGA training, that's a big part of their whole education program.
Right.
It is the student-centered model.
Yeah.
And understanding that and everything.
Yeah, and I always kind of toy with, can you be trained to do that? And I think a lot of it's just experience. It's like I think you have to care about people first off, but to have some empathy, and there's nobody that could be more empathetic about golf than you, because you've been there from the beginning stages, which I think it's got to be huge for you. When like a newer golfer comes and you're going to give them a tremendous amount of hope, right?
Yeah, and
but you understand where they've been,
Sure, and they might be able to relate better to me, but a good teacher that can get inside that student's center is going to be able to do the same thing,
Right.
Is it already there, or is it learned? I think it can be learned, but the person's got to be open to learning it.
Right.
You get if they're not open and allowing themselves to be vulnerable in the learning process, they're not going to learn it.
Yeah.
You got to be willing to be vulnerable, maybe be wrong.
Yeah, a
to
lot.
Learn stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. You got to be willing to make a lot of mistakes, and then.
Yeah.
Do you journal at all? Have you in the past? I mean,
I don't.
No.
I know that's a big thing.
Yeah.
With you, I'm not a big journaler.
You're a lot smarter than me, so I think you can probably remember stuff. I got to write it down.
I do set out goals for myself. When I first got into the golf business, I said that I would do whatever I could do or needed to do for 5 years to build my resume the best.
So you set a timeline. I think that's so important.
Yeah, I did set a timeline, and ended up about the 4-year mark on where 3 years at Inverness, Faldo Golf Institute, and I did a little stint with Golf Digest schools down in West Palm Beach.
Right.
And that brought me to Dana's and that was a major goal of mine, is top 100 teacher, top 25 golf school, be able to teach year round. So that was kind of in that 5-year goal, that was the ultimate goal there.
So what if you didn't get to the golf school in time? What do you think would have happened?
Where would I be if I
Yeah.
didn't go?
Or you think you would have just stuck it out, or you just think?
Oh, I see. What
Yeah.
the question is.
If you didn't meet that timeline, what do you think?
Oh,
I feel like you'd have kept moving. You'd have kept because you're so close.
The not meeting the timeline wasn't an option. I was gonna figure out how to do it.
There you go.
I might not have ended up in Charlotte, but that I was gonna, one way or another, that timeline was gonna get met.
You remember the nickname I gave you, right?
Yeah. Do I have to say it out loud?
Yeah, of course.
Nails.
Yeah. Lenny Dykstra. You're just like a terrier, because you're just seeking information and just you figure it out. That's what I love about you. That's so awesome. You remember that?
Oh yeah, for sure.
The other ones I'm not gonna. The other one is the mayor, right? So
yes, that was.
You want to tell us that story?
That was a.
You didn't think I remember that, did you?
No, that was an Inverness. That was an Inverness nickname that they came up with. Let's see if I can keep this story clean. So, I guess a Midwestern term for kind of a nerdy person is called a pards over in the Midwest.
Yeah, pards.
And I went in there, kind of a little nerdy. I was always seeking information. Back then, still reading a lot of stuff, kind of bugging Carbone. In a way bugging them, but be like, hey, can I watch your lesson? It wasn't. So one of the people gave me the name, the mayor of Pardsville, because I was such a nerdy. I would always be hanging around there, either working on my game or watching Carbone teach. When I wasn't working, I was seeking out that kind of stuff. So they're like, you're the mayor of Pardsville. and it stuck with that team, and I've been the mayor ever since.
You even got it on your golf balls.
I did put those. We're lucky enough through the LPGA and I was like, what name do I want to put on there? And that was it.
I love it.
That's my golf nickname, I guess.
There you go. You always be Nails to me, though.
That's another.
The Lenny Dykstra of golf instruction for those baseball fans out there. All right, so describe a failure, okay, or an apparent failure that has set you up for later success. Do you have a favorite story or favorite failure?
I try not to think about failures that way. I try to make failures into opportunities, and then I don't like thinking in the past things as failures. So, here's one, I guess. Not golf related.
That's okay.
This was back in college. Like I said, I've been educated as an engineer, and I can't remember one of the semesters. My what were they called at the time? Advisor, yeah. Yeah. Sent me a note, a handwritten note, and the bottom line was he was questioning whether the classes that I took were too hard and should I reevaluate my major and stuff like that. And I really took it to heart. I probably carried that handwritten note in my book bag for probably 2-3 semesters, maybe 4 semesters. And it stayed in my book bag that whole time. And so when I graduated, I put that note in an envelope and a copy of my transcripts in that envelope. And I just wrote on it, and he wasn't my advisor anymore at the time. After that end of that semester, I switched advisors. But I wrote on the top of the envelope, whatever his name was, thanks for the motivation. And I just left him on his desk.
What a great story.
So I guess that would be...
No, that's fantastic.
One of the kind of failures that I turned around.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, I left that on his desk.
That is so good.
I graduated.
I love that. All right. Where should we go
Oh,
next?
here's another one.
Yeah. Give me another one.
So I guess it would be a failure. It's a kind of a funny story with Charlie King involved in it. So at one point, this was years ago, Charlie had called me up and he was working down at PGA National down in West Palm Beach, and he was getting himself established there, and he was looking for some more instructors, and he called me and asked me if I wanted to come down and work for him in the winter, and I was still at Inverness in the summers, so I'm like, sure. And I was supposed to start the Monday after Thanksgiving, and my mom was in Florida and I was down there for Thanksgiving. Charlie calls me that Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and he calls me up, and I don't know the whole story, but they basically let his contract go that day. In Golf Digest, they were moving Golf Digest into PGA National that Monday I was supposed to start.
Oh, my.
And they had just let him know that. So we were talking on the phone, and I'm like, I need a job for the winter and stuff. And I'm like, what do you think I should do? He goes, if I was you, I would just show up on Monday like you belong there and just see what happens. So Monday comes along, I show up, and there's some of the other instructors that were there with Charlie, bunch of new people from Golf Digest, and they were going over some stuff, and they were all in the room, and we had to go around the room, and we had to say how long we were working at PGA National. So they get to me, and I look at my watch, and they're like, and I introduce myself, and I go, well, I've been here about 2 hours. And the guy, kind of laughs, and he goes, yeah, we've heard that. Yeah, it's a 2-hour meeting. How long have you been working here? I go, I actually don't work here. I've actually been here only 2 hours. This was supposed to be my first day of work. And they just looked at me and stuff, and they let me stay through the meeting and everything. And at the end of the meeting, the guy called me over, and he goes, hey, listen, that takes a lot of courage just to show up.
Sure.
We're interviewing everybody that used to work here, just like they haven't worked here before, and we're interviewing to see if they're going to get hired by us. He goes, you're more than welcome to go through the interview process. So I'm like thinking to myself, yeah, I don't really have a job, so of course I want to do it. So I went through the interview process, and they hired me, and I worked 2 seasons at Golf Digest for them while I was up in Inverness. So I guess I don't know if that's a failure.
No, it just shows gumption, right? I mean, it's just taking a leap of faith. That's courage right there.
Yeah, I don't know if I would have thought of it if Charlie didn't say it, but yeah, sure. I was a little nervous and stuff to do it, but it all worked out.
How are you feeling when they were going around the table? Like, you're thinking, like, what am I going to say?
Yeah, that's why I made like a half joke about it, because they're like, oh yeah, I've been teaching here for 8 years, blah blah blah. I have this many clientele, and they come to me, and I'm like, yeah, I'm Nancy Harvey. I've been here for about 2 hours, and they thought that was a joke for the meeting. I'm like, no, this was actually supposed to be my first day.
Oh my gosh, that is such a great story. Oh man. So I think I know the answer to this question, but I'm gonna throw it out there anyways. This is a new one that I came up with. I think as continuous learners, it's always important for us to stay in that beginner's mindset, right? And we've mentioned several times being open-minded to new information. Have you learned a new skill in the last, say, year or a couple of years that has put you in that sort of beginner mindset? A new talent, or like an instrument, or new anything? What have you done?
Yeah, so it's been probably a little over a year off and on, but I've taken up playing the ukulele.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, so I bought one. I'm a lefty, and I tried to do it opposite, and that was too hard, so I had it restrung for a lefty.
Had it restrung.
Yeah, I had to have it restrung for the lefty, and I would never play it, and it's not for public use. But yeah, learned a couple songs, learned some chords.
So how did you learn? Did you hire a coach, or did you?
At first, I did the internet stuff.
Okay, like
just
YouTube?
For the basic, YouTube.
There you go.
Just for the basic chords and stuff and the strums, and I was getting stuck on the G chord and the E chord. So I had to go and take a couple lessons, and being kind of obviously a coach or teacher myself, my first teacher that I kind of went to, it didn't work out too well.
So tell us about that. Come on, this is great.
So one, I was through email corresponding with him, and I said I was a lefty. Is that going to be an issue? Because everything, so it's all. I said they restrung it and everything. Yeah. He's like, no problem at all. And I told him the chords that I was having trouble with, and the first lesson. He goes, well, you should actually just play it righty, and just do it, from the bottom up. And I'm like, I thought we explained this in the correspondence that wasn't really an issue. It was too hard for me. My hand-eye coordination couldn't strum with that hand and stuff.
Push it up. There you go.
Yeah. So I knew that was getting off to, well, he's not in my world.
That's awesome, though. I mean, that's like somebody calling you up for a golf lesson and going, I'm a right-handed player and I want to work on my irons. And you go, well, I think you need to play lefty and let's work on your driver.
Yeah, it was exactly that. And the other part was because I was having trouble with, I still have trouble with E, but I was having trouble with G and E, and I was asking him, is there like a wrist position, or where does my thumb support the neck?
All right, so let me stop. Did he use the word flexion or extension?
He did not.
And I would have left that. I would have left that lesson immediately.
He did not use those words, but he's like, no, your thumb can go anywhere. And then I'm thinking to myself, that's like a instructor being like, oh, your grip can be anything. I'm like, that's not. So that lesson, needless to say, didn't go great.
So you didn't go back.
I did not go back.
All right,
but I did find another, and it's not like I'm not even super serious about it. But it was just like you said. I'm like, I want to learn something new. I'm not very musically inclined, but I thought the ukulele might be a fun one. It's only 4 strings. It's not a big investment. You can play it by yourself, so nobody can hear it.
So you're not going to put up any like YouTube videos of you?
Never.
No. Okay.
No.
Right.
Nobody.
Hey, I've got a studio. We can jam.
No, I don't think anybody's going to hear the ukulele except for me and a couple neighbors.
So tell us about the next lesson.
Oh, so the next lesson, I find somebody else, and we're doing some correspondence. And he was like, hey, that sounds great that you figured out that you're better strumming with your left hand instead of your right hand and everything, and it went great. He helped me position where my thumb kind of supports it, so I can get to that E and I can get to that G, and he was giving me direction. The fingers got to come like you're coming down on it. I mean, and so I took a couple lessons from him where I'm much more proficient at the E and the G chords now and everything.
So you achieved your goal.
I did. It wasn't that I just wanted to learn, because those were the 2 that was I was stumbling on for chords. Right. I'm just still really a beginner. It's not like I practice every day or anything, but those 2 chords were ones that I was stumbling on, and it took me 2, but I found somebody that really helped me out.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
So it's just such relates to what we do, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, it's helpful probably to be in the opposite role, right? I mean, it's be learning something new and
for sure. I mean, just like for you and stuff, whether it's a musical instrument or just that energy of learning something new, more than anything. I don't have to really be good at it. It's just that energy of, learning it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I know that was not easy. All right, so let's get back to, we mentioned books, and I always kind of like to leave the listeners with some ideas, even though, the guys that I mentor, the younger generation, don't read as much, but I still think for those people out there that want some book ideas, do you have a couple of books? And it could be golf or it could be non-golf related, maybe personal development or just anything that you think would be helpful or it's kind of had a big influence on your career.
I used to read a lot of the personal development books, especially in my previous career and everything. I've gotten away from reading a lot of those. I get my motivation or my I don't know if development's the right word. I really like reading like autobiographies.
Right.
True stories kind of motivate me. Stuff like that.
What's been your favorites? Do you have any come to mind?
I'm a big Abraham Lincoln fan.
It's a good one. I know a lot of people recommend that.
Yeah, Teams of Rivals is the one that I would recommend. It was about kind of his role and how he became president and his cabinet members and who he picked because they were his rivals. That's a big one. Autobiography of Ben Franklin is a classic that I got a lot of stuff out of. Some people say that might be the best autobiography ever written. So I get more of those types of books. Tom Brokaw wrote a book called The Greatest Generation, and it's short stories of World War II, which was really inspirational to me. So I read more of that kind of stuff than personal development books now.
Yeah. Anything golf? I mean, I know we read a lot of stuff. I mean, you're looking at my library behind you there, and I was probably going 15, 20 books a year for a pretty good clip. I know we've shared a lot of stuff.
Yeah, like when I first kind of got into the golf business, it was more books about me as the golfer, trying to get better and develop as a golfer.
Different position.
One that stands out was that 8 Traits of a Championship Golfer.
That's a great one.
Was one. Quantum Golf was another one I remember that I really... John
Graham actually mentioned that on on the podcast. Yeah, that's funny. That's 2 for Quantum Golf.
Yeah, one of the quotes, it's effortless power instead of a powerful effort.
Yeah.
Was one of the quotes in that book I remember. And then once I started knowing that passion for teaching kind of developed, one of the first books I read as far as that part of the golf was In Search for the Perfect Swing.
Yeah, there you go. There's some science. Yeah.
Shocker for me to read that.
Really good.
And I mean, I've always loved Lynn and Pia's stuff, any of those books.
Vision 54.
Yeah.
It's fantastic from the mental standpoint.
Yeah.
Did you go through their training? I think you did. Or I know Dana did.
Yeah, I was lucky enough. I didn't exactly go through their training, but back, what was it, in 2014 when the U.S. Men's and Women's Open was at Pinehurst. In between those 2 tournaments, Lynn and Pia did a 2-day school at Dana's, and I was lucky enough to kind of be the liaison, and I shadowed them for the whole time that they were there. I was allowed to shadow them, and we talk at lunch and after the class. So I got a really good education and insight. I was really lucky to be able to be involved in something like that.
That's awesome. All right, just a couple more questions. You've been very kind with your time, and this has been a really fun conversation. Okay, so and this is one I like to ask everybody because I'm trying to work on this myself. Is when you feel overwhelmed or unfocused, what do you do, and what do you tell yourself when you just feel maybe like a little bit overwhelmed or stressed out? What are some go-tos? Besides like traveling the world, taking long vacations,
overwhelmed.
Any daily habits that you have? Maybe you're.
I do have some quirky daily habits.
Please share.
One would be I go to bed listening to TED Talks. I fall asleep listening to TED
Okay,
Talks.
that's not that unusual, I don't think.
All right. Well, you're not. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Some of my friends think that's
Yeah, I can understand.
Little nutty. Overwhelmed. I really just try to take a step back, deep breath, just kind of slow down and recharge. Sit in the backyard and read a book.
Okay. Just get away a little bit.
Yeah. I'll make, if I feel stressed or I've got a lot going on, I'll make a list. It makes me feel a lot better and just start. It helps me organize priority-wise and stuff, and probably just take a step back and relax. But the list thing, when I feel like I've got a million things I've got to get done, really helps me organize it and stuff.
That's really good advice. I do that as well. It's like usually when I'm overwhelmed, it's because I haven't prioritized and I'm trying to do too many things at once.
Sure, and sometimes I put stuff on that list that I knew I already did.
Yeah,
but I get
just,
to cross
just to
it
make
out,
it, just to make so you can cross it out.
Right, and it gets me started. There's something I can cross out already now.
I like it.
I don't care if I've already done it.
I love it. That's so good. All right, last question, and then we'll let you give some parting words. If you had to get one message to the world, this is the billboard question that you've probably heard me ask via, a metaphorical billboard or, on the internet. What would it be? It could be a quote. It could be a saying. It could be advice.
Yeah, I did hear you ask that, and I thought about it. I don't know if I have one. There's a couple sayings. Some are funny and some are not. I was trying to think, but I don't know if it would be a worldwide thing that I'd want out.
What would be your mantra? What's Nancy Harvey's
What would be my mantra? One would be, I'm not saving lives here. I'm just teaching golf. That would be one.
I like it. It's not rocket science. It's not heart surgery.
I have been known
Sometimes
to
it
say,
feels that way.
I have been known, I don't save lives. I just teach golf. To enjoy the process. Golf has given me so much stuff that I think some people try to rush through whatever the process is. Is it learning golf? Is it learning to be a better teacher? It's just a tremendous journey. That take your time with it.
Patience.
Yeah. Have some patience with it. Enjoy the process. Enjoy the journey. And then on kind of another funny one that somebody had told me when I was getting frustrated on the range one day. This was a long time ago. They walked by without breaking stride, and they just said, "You're not that good to get that mad."
I love it.
So that's what I mean by, I don't know if these are, I would publish them worldwide, but those are some of the.
But you feel like
quotes.
That sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Players that come in and say they play twice a year, and then they're getting mad because they hit a bad shot. Like you haven't put enough time.
I've said it to people. Only certain ones that
Yeah,
I know
you
that
gotta
can
know.
take it and stuff.
Right.
But yeah, so those are some funny ones.
That's fantastic.
But it's a process for sure.
Yeah, as I always say, I think I got that got the saying from Mr. Rohn is don't get frustrated, get fascinated.
That's another one.
Yeah.
Turn that frustration into fascination.
There you go.
I just said it in a 3-day school this morning to somebody. Turn it into fascination. It's a fascinating journey, your golf swing.
That's such good information, such good advice. So let the listeners know before we part, how can they get a hold of you, and how can they reach out to you and say thank you for imparting this information?
I'm on Twitter at the Golf Nancy. I think that's also my Instagram.
Right.
At
it
the
is.
Golf Nancy. You can get a hold of me email, and Harvey, Harvey, at golfballantyne.com.
That's great. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you.
This is so much fun.
I don't know how many people are going to want to listen to me, but I really appreciate the opportunity.
They will, and they should come take a lesson from Nancy if you're in the area. Fantastic teacher, and even a better person, and I'm happy to call you friend.
Oh, thank you.
So thanks so much for coming on. So reach out to Nancy and tell her how much you appreciate this. And if you can tweet me at Golf Guru TV or Instagram at Golf Guru TV, your number one takeaway from this interview, that would be awesome. And I will talk to you next time. We always say, study, practice, teach, and then pass it on.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much for listening. Big thank you to Nancy Harvey for coming through. Appreciate all the insight, and I hope you enjoyed that conversation. Tweet me your biggest takeaway at Golf Guru TV or send me a DM on the Instagram. Either way, that would be awesome. Let me know how I can do better. So reach out to Nancy and say thank you. Give her a pat on the back at the Golf Nancy on the Twitter and Instagram as well. And if you want to be a part of Guru Fridays, for those of you who have tuned in to the podcast, once a week I answer your questions on teaching or anything that you want me to bring up and share your story. And I will not use your name. I'll make up a name, or you can make up a fake name yourself. So it will be completely anonymous. So you can send your questions to golfgurushow@gmail.com. golfgurushow@gmail.com, and leave me a review. That would be awesome. I think you have to make up a fake name or something. I'm starting to learn how this thing works with iTunes, but I really appreciate all the support. Keep the downloads coming. Go share this podcast with somebody you think it would benefit. And as I always close, study, practice, teach, pass it on, and I will talk to you guys next time. Thanks for listening.